We begin today the Gemara on Daf Nun Tes Amud Aleph, about 8 lines from the top of the Yomud, where it says Meisvei. So the Gemara before brought a machlekes between Rav and Shmuel and Rav Ada bar Ava. When it comes to the arrangement that there is between husband and wife, what is instead of what? Do we say that the mezainis, this that he feeds her, is in exchange for her maisiyadeh, for her income? And then the ma kesef, which is spending money that he gives her, is instead of the surplus of her work? Or is it the other way around? Rav Ada bar Ava said that it's the mezainis, it's the food, which is instead of the surplus that she earns. And the ma kesef, the spending money, is instead of maisiyadeh. That's instead of the work that she works. So the Gemara here brings a brayse that seems to say clearly, like Rav and Shmuel, Meisvei. I'll ask you one question on Rav Ada bar Ava. The brayse says, Tiknu mezainis tachas maisiyadeh. Chachamim instituted. We just quoted this in the previous Amud that Chachamim instituted that the woman should get, the wife should get mezainis to be fed instead of the work. So it says clearly that the mezainis is instead of maisiyadeh, and not like Rav Ada bar Ava said that it's instead of the surplus of maisiyadeh. Amen. So the Gemara answers, you'll have to say, according to Rav Ada bar Ava, reading the Braisa, Tachas Meiser Maisiyadeh, that it's instead of the surplus of Maisiyadeh. The Braisa was written concisely, and it's you have to add that word, that it's the surplus. Toshama, I'll bring you a raya from another Braisa. So here, this is a question on Rav and Shmuel, I believe. So it says here, if he does not give her, if he doesn't give his wife, a ma kesef for her what she needs for spending money, so then maisiyadeh shalah. So then what she works or what she earns and what she does it will be hers because he doesn't give her spending money, so she doesn't have to give him maisiyadeh. So here we clearly see that the spending money is instead of maisiyadeh. Not like Rav and Shmuel said that the ma kesef is instead of the surplus of maisiyadeh. So the Gemara here says, again, we'll have to read into this Braise. Read what the Braise means to say is Meiser Maisiyadeh. The spending money the husband gives her is instead of the surplus of what she works. Fragt the Gemara, but how could you say this? This is actually a Mishnah that we'll learn soon over here later on Daf Samach Dalet. Over there, the Mishnah spells out exactly what it is that the wife does when she works for her husband. The Mishnah there spells out clearly what is the work that she has to do for her husband. So this is the thread that she has to prepare for him to make a garment. Mishkal chomesh sloim shesi b'Yehuda. So there has to be the amount of thread that she has to prepare for him has to be the weight of 5 sloim of shesi. Shesi is the warp thread in the city of Yehuda. In other words, we're measuring by the sloim, by the coins that are used in the city of Yehuda. So the Mishnah there clearly spells out that this is the measure, this is the amount of what she has to work and prepare for her husband. So how can you say we're talking about the surplus if the Mishnah itself spells out that this is not the surplus, this is the amount that she's obligated to prepare for her husband? So the Gemara says, well, we could interpret this Mishnah as well, Hachi Ka'amar, that this is what it means. Ma'isiyadeh Kama, the Mishnah is telling you how much is Ma'isiyadeh, what is it that she has to work for him? And the reason why the Mishnah is saying it, Kama hava, how much it is, the leda, so that you'll know Maisa dida kama. So then you'll know whatever she does more than this is the surplus. And the Mishnah spells out what is it? Mishkal chamish shloim shesi b'Yehuda. She has to prepare thread, the weight of 5 sloim of shesi, again the warp thread, in the city of Yehuda. In other words, the sloim of the city of Yehuda. Shehein esa sloim begolo. In Golol, another section of Eretz Yisrael, so there they had different coins. The coins that they had over there were smaller coins. So the weight will be 10 coins of the area of Golol. So you can still say that this Mishnah fits with Rav and Shmuel's opinion that the ma kesef that he gives her, the spending money he gives her, is instead of the surplus of her work. Okay, now the Gemara comes back to the machlokes that we had in the Mishnah. Again, to remind you, in the Mishnah it was speaking about a husband that was makdish, a husband that was makdish, the surplus of the work of his wife. And there, Rab Meir said that the hektish will take effect. Rab Yechanan HaSandler said, chulin, it does not take effect. And in the Gemara before, Rav and Shmuel both said that when we're speaking about this hektish taking effect, we're not talking about in the lifetime of the husband. Because then, for sure, it will not take effect, because the Mishnah is speaking about a case that the husband is not giving his wife a ma kesef. He's not giving her any spending money. So therefore, that surplus that she's earning does not go to the husband b'chlal. So everybody would agree that in the lifetime of the husband, he doesn't have the power to be makdish, the surplus of her work. So what did Rav and Shmuel explain? What is the Mishnah speaking about? Whether when the husband was makdish the surplus of his wife's income, does that take effect after she passes away? After she passes away, he inherits all of this. So now the question is, at that point, should I say that it becomes hektish or not? So really, what's the basis of the machlekes? The Gemara never spelled it out, but Rashi here says, and as we'll see in the continuation of the Gemara, the basis of the machlekes is basically revolving around the point that we learned yesterday, which is, could you be makdish a davar shaloi ba la'olam? He's being makdish something that in the present state is not even his bachlal. But now, after she passes away, or after he divorces her, forget about divorces her, after she passes away, so then it'll become his. So the question is, could we say that it'll take effect? When he was makdish, it was a davar shaloi ba la'olam. It was not here, it wasn't his bachlal. So Rab Meir says that, yeah, it takes effect, even though it's not here now. He has the power to be makdish it for later, when she passes away. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler is saying, no, it's chulin. You can't be makdish a davar shaloi ba la'olam. So now here the Gemara says, Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel said regarding this, halacha Rabbi Yochanan Sandler. We paskin like Rabbi Yochanan Sandler that the hektish will not take effect, which basically means that Rabbi Yochanan is saying that because it's a davar shaloi ba la'olam, she did not die yet, and at this point it's not his. He doesn't have the right at all to be makdish this. This surplus of her income belongs to her. Again, because we're speaking about a case where the husband is not supporting her, so therefore this surplus belongs to her. So it's a davar shaloi ba la'olam. That's what Rabbi Yochanan, Shmuel, that is paskin like Rabbi Yochanan. Frag the Gemara, but Shmuel hachi. Did Shmuel say this regarding a hektish in such a kind of situation that the hektish will not take effect? But Vatnan, there's a Mishnah that says in the Dorim, Kainam shani oisa lepicha. What happens if a person's wife is making a neder? The term kainam is a term of a neder. She makes a vow saying that whatever I earn, you should not be allowed to have any benefit of it. She doesn't want her husband to have any benefit of her earnings. So she makes this neder. So the Mishnah says, Ein tzarich lahafer. The husband does not have to annul this vow because she doesn't have a right to make such a kind of a vow. How could she ask it on her husband? This is the arrangement. This is the rights that the husband has. It belongs to him. So it's nothing. Rabbi Akiva, however, Rabbi Akiva says yafer, that he will have to annul this vow, but the vow could take effect, and the reason is Shema Tadif Olav Yesem and Aroiloi, because perhaps she will earn more than what the husband deserves to get from her. So there are certain extras that do belong to her, and therefore the vow that she makes will take effect regarding those extras. So if he doesn't want the vow to take effect, he better annul the vow. The husband has the power to annul his wife's vow. As Taisus points out of here, even though we learned that the earnings of a wife, including the maisar, the surplus, all belongs to the husband. So what does it say over here? The tadif, maybe there's more. But there is, we'll see later in the Gemara, there is a certain extra that does not belong to the husband. And that, the vow will take effect. That belongs to her. She has the right to make a vow that the husband should not have benefit from this. And Rav Yochanan ben Nuri Amar. Rav Yochanan ben Nuri said, he offered that the husband has to annul his wife's vow because Shema Yigar Shana, because he may divorce her, and at that point, then what happens if he divorces her? So of course, after he divorces her, so now the vow that she says that whatever I do is my income belongs to me, and this man cannot have any benefit of this. Of course, that vow at that point will take effect. And and now, once this vow will take effect, and now this man cannot have any benefit of this woman that's not his wife anymore. But now, if he wants to remarry her, he will not be able to remarry her. Why can't they remarry her? Because he can't take any benefit from this woman. So if he wants to marry her, and she should be able to work for him, she should be able to cook for him, she should be able to prepare things for him. She won't be able to do anything for him as a wife. So if he wants to be able to ever remarry her, so he should annul her vows. Okay, so that's the opinion of Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. If he's not going to annul her vows, she won't be able to remarry him. Shmuel, so regarding this machlokes here, Shmuel said, halacha ke Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that we paskin like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So what do you see over here? If Rabbi Yochanan is saying that we paskin like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, so that means even though at this point, when this woman made this neder, she made this vow that the husband should not be able to have any benefit from her, really the vow should not take effect presently. Presently, her income belongs to her husband. So nevertheless, I say, but because in the future she may get divorced, and then her income will belong to her, so therefore her vow takes effect. So her vow is essentially taking effect for something which is loy baloilam, which at this point is not even hers at all. And the Gedushin that may be in the future is not even here at all. But nevertheless, the vow takes effect. So how can we say that Shmuel at the same time could say regarding the hektish of our Mishnah that it does not take effect? He's paskening like Rabbi Yochanan as Sandler that a woman can that the income belongs to her. So therefore, the husband cannot be makdish this. Even though in the future she may die and then it'll belong to the husband, but that's not here yet. And therefore, over there he says the hektish does not take effect. And here regarding this neder, Rabbi Yochanan Shmuel, that is, paskins like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. And he says that the vow of the woman will take effect regarding her income, even though it's only for the future, for the Gedushin, and right now it doesn't even belong to her. Okay, so we have a contradiction in the opinion of Shmuel. So the Gemara answers, we can say as follows. Ki Yoma Shmuel halacha k'Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. When Shmuel said that the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, lahadafa. He wasn't saying exactly that the halacha is like what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri himself said. That it refers to this, that in the future, when she gets divorced, then the vow could take effect. Because that's not Bal Olam. Rather, what he meant to say is basically what Rabbi Akiva said, that for the extras that she may earn, and that's something that she has the power. It's hers, and she has the power to make a vow that the husband should not have any benefit from this. It's on this hadafa, on this extras, that the neder takes effect. That's what Shmuel meant to say. Okay, the truth is that Rashi points out that this answer of the Gemara doesn't really answer anything. If the point that we're focusing on is whether you can make a neder, or be makdish something, which is loy bal olam, which is not here in the world yet, so then even hadafa, this extra that she may earn is also not bal olam. She didn't work yet, and she didn't even earn these extras yet. So what's the Gemara answering? That before Rabbi Yochanan said that you can't be makdish something that's loy bal olam, and now he's saying that you could. Even when the Gemara answers hadafa, it's that this hadafa is still loy bal olam. So it's a good question. Rashi says that really the answer of the Gemara is very weak, but the Gemara asks on this answer another question, another obvious question. How can you say that when Shmuel said the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, he wasn't referring to what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, which is that when she gets divorced, then it'll take effect. Rather, he meant the hadafa, the extras. That's not what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said. If that's what Shmuel meant, if so, v'lema halacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri lehadafa, you should have spelled out clearly that I'm not really paskening like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Rather, I'm only paskening regarding the extras. Inami, or he should have said, Ein halacha k'Tanakama. We don't paskin like the Tanakama that says that the husband does not have to annul this vow because the vow could take effect for the extras that she earns. Well, there's no point in saying that the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri if he doesn't really mean that. Inami, or Shmuel should have said halacha k'Rabbi Akiva. That would have been the best. If he would have said the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, that's exactly what Rabbi Akiva said. That the vow takes effect for those extras that she might earn. So this can't be what Shmuel meant. So Elam Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef gives a different answer. Rav Yosef points out that even though both the Mishnah over here and the Mishnah that we quoted from the Darim is both speaking about a situation of something that's not in the world yet, but there's a difference. Our Mishnah was speaking about hektish, when you're being makdish something to hektish. And over here we're speaking about a neder, when you're making a vow, which is not to make it hektish for everybody, but she's making a vow, a neder that the husband should not be allowed to have a no. A vow is different. So, Rav Yosef, if you're asking me a question from the power of a woman to make a vow, Shani kainemis, when you make a vow, this is different. You have more of a power. The power a person has to make a vow, to ask something in a neder, is stronger than the power that you have to be makdish something to hektish. Where do we see this? Because when it comes to a vow, a person can make a neder and say, the fruits that belong to my friend, I should not be allowed to have any benefit of this. Could you say such a thing when it comes to hektish? Could you come and say, the fruits that belongs to my friend should become hektish? Of course not. How could you take the fruits of your friend and give them to hektish? But you could say that I should not have any benefit from the fruits of my friend. So therefore, since we see that the power of making a vow for even something that's not in your possession takes effect, so I say as well regarding a vow, Adam Makdish, or some are guided here, Adam Eiser, Davar Shalei Balaylam. You could also make a vow for something that's not in the world yet. So that's the answer. When it comes to hektish, just like you can't be makdish something that's not yours, you also can't be makdish something that's not in the world yet. But when it comes to a vow, just like I see that you could make a vow regarding your friend's fruits that's not even yours at all, so too you can make a vow regarding something that's not in the world yet. That's Rav Yosef's answer.
For yourself.
My son is going to be.
Yeah, for yourself.
My son.
Amalei Abaye, but Abaye doesn't accept this answer. Abaye says, how could you compare it to what we're speaking about over here? I can understand why, when it comes to a vow. You have the ability to aser your friend's fruits on yourself, shekain, because we also say that the reverse is true. Adam al chavere. You have the power to say that my fruits that I own will be aser for my friend to have any benefit of. In other words, the point over here is, as long as one of the two, either the fruits belong to you, and then you could aser it on someone else, or even if the fruits belong to someone else, you could make a neder to aser it on yourself. That both of these, we understand why that is so. But yesa dava shaloi balo elam al chavedai. But now you're going to say that you have a power to ask something that's not even in the world yet on your friend. Shekain ein adam oisa peres chavedai al chavedai. A person can't come and say the fruits of my friend, that your fruits will be also for you. That for sure you can't do. You don't have the power to make a neder for someone else to say that his fruits are usher on him. So over here as well, what are we speaking about? We're speaking about this wife, and she's coming and saying that my income, which at this point is not even hers at all, my income, which at this point belongs to her husband, and she's asking it on her husband when she gets divorced, when she gets divorced, and then it's going to belong to him. So what is she doing? She's making a neder to aser her husband's income, it belongs to the husband, on him for something that's not even in the world yet. She didn't even earn it yet, and the divorce didn't take effect yet. That's way too far. It's way too extreme to say such a thing, that the power of a vow is to this extent. It's going to be compared to asering your friend's fruits on your friend. How do you have a power to do that? Okay, so the Gemara will now give a different answer, but before I just go weiter, that Rashi points out over in the continuation of the Gemara is going to focus on that there's really two details over here regarding the davar shalei bala olam that we're speaking about. Okay, the point of this sugya is we're talking about a person making a vow on something that's not in your possession, it's not here in the world yet. So Rashi says there are two details to this. Number one, the work that she's doing, that she's earning, she hasn't even earned it yet. It's not even here yet, b'chlal, and it doesn't. And even if she does, it doesn't belong to her. It belongs to the husband. And then what did Rabbi Yechanan ben Nuri say? That we're talking about making a neder for the future when she gets divorced, and at that point she'll have the rights for her work for it to take effect. The Gedushin is not Ba'ilam yet. So again, the work that she's doing is not Ba'ilam yet, and the Gedushin is not Ba'ilam yet. So she has to have a power to make such a vow. So the Gemara starts first with one point, and the Gemara will then continue to explain the next point. So Ella Amar Rav Huna Bereid Rav Yeshua. So Rav Huna Bereid Rav Yeshua says as follows: when she makes this vow, and we say that it takes effect, what we're talking about is, what she's saying is, my hands which will do this work, they should become holy, they should belong to Hashem that created these hands. Right? So basically she's making a vow saying that her very hands itself should be usher to her husband. Okay, she can't make a neder regarding the work that her hands create. That belongs to the husband. Or that's not even here by Ilam yet. But her hands, that's what she's making the neder on. And therefore that the neder takes effect regarding her hands. And so the husband would have to annul such a vow. The Yadayim Misnu Ba'ilam. Her hands are here in the world. But the Gemara asks him this: how could she say such a thing? If she's saying that my hands itself that produced this work should be usher, and in other words, that the husband can't have any benefit of it, does she have the power to do such a thing? Does the vow take effect? We go back to the original point, but this is something which is meshubed, this is subjugated, it belongs to the husband. Mm-hmm. That was the whole point in the Brais over here, that Rabbi Akiva and even Rabbi Yechanan ben Nuri were saying maybe only the extras, or maybe after she's divorced. On that, her vow would take effect. But over here, we're now saying that in order to explain how her vow could take effect if the work doesn't exist in the world yet. So we're saying, she's making the vow on the very hands itself, and that exists by Elam. But the very hands itself, the power she has in her hands are meshubed, belong to the husband. She has to work for her husband. How could she make such a neder? So the Gemara answers, the Amra l'chimigrisha. So you're going to have to say, like Rabbi Yechanan ben Nuri said, she's saying, my hands that exist right now, the power of my hands my husband should not be able to have benefit of it when I get divorced. So true, the power of her hands right now belongs to her husband, but she's saying when I get divorced, then this neder should take effect. Oh, so now the Gemara asks, now as I mentioned before, the Gemara now will focus on the second point, which is it's still like balayla. The Gedushin is not here yet. So is there anything that we could say? The ilo hashto lekadish, that right now, presently, the hektish cannot take effect, and in this case, the vow cannot take effect. Ulekamei kadish, and the vow will take effect because of the gedushin that will happen later. So even if you're going to explain to me that the work is here already, because we're not speaking about the work, we're speaking about the power of the work in the hand, and that's here, but there's another aspect to this, which is the gedushin. The gedushin is not here yet, so still the question remains, this is a davar shalei bala olam. So how does the kedushin take, the vow that is, take effect, if according to Shmuel's opinion, a davar shalei bala olam, it doesn't take effect? Amar Rabbi Loi, so Rabbi Loi actually says, Alam Aloi, why not? We could perhaps say that even though the gedushin is not here yet, but it should take effect. And he brings an example. A person comes and says to his friend, this property that I'm selling to you. So right now I'm selling it to you, but when I could afford it and I'll be able to buy it back from you, tiktash. Then when I'll buy it back, it'll become hektish. In such a case, will it not become hektish? So even though he's making a hektish, he's dedicating a hektish for the future, that I'm selling it to you, and then after I sell it to you, when I'll buy it back, then it'll become hektish. The hektish will take effect, even though it's only for the future. So what he's saying is the same should be over here. This woman that's saying that the earnings of my hands will become hektish when I get divorced, even though presently she's not divorced yet, the hektish will take effect. Because we see, this is the halacha, even though the person is saying the hektish regarding the future, when he buys it back, the hektish does take effect. So the Gemara asks him this is not a good analogy. It's not compared at all. Maskef lo Rav Yirmiyah, says Rav Yirmiyah, how could you compare it to that case? Midami, what's the comparison? Hasam biyadai la'akdisha. Over there, what are we speaking about? A person that presently owns this property. So in the present moment, he has the ability to be makdish it. And now he's going to sell it, and he's saying, even though I'm going to sell it to you, but then when I'll afford it, I'll buy it back, and then I'll be makdish it. But he's in a position that presently he has the power to be makdish it. That's why it takes effect, even though he's connecting it to the future. But hacha, in our case, what are we speaking about? She's presently married to her husband, and she has no way to get herself divorced. So therefore, she's saying that my earnings should be usher to you when I get divorced in the future, and that's something which is out of her control. So it's loy bala olam. You can't say that she presently is in a position that she can do this at all. And halei damya, this is a continuation of the question. If you want to compare the case of what this woman is trying to do, it'll be compared to the following. A person that tells his friend, this property that I've already sold to you, it's out of my possession already. And you go and you tell your friend regarding a property that now belongs to him, when I'll acquire it from you, tiktash, then it should become hektish. What's the halacha there? The hektish does not take effect. It's not in his possession yet. So over here as well, the divorce that could happen in the future hasn't happened yet, and it's totally out of her control. So how could she be makdish her earnings or her hands for the earnings for the future when she gets divorced from her husband if presently it belongs to the husband and she has no power to do this? But the Gemara is not done yet. The Gemara says we just made this comparison from a person that's trying to be makdish a property that he sold, that's not in his possession anymore. And we're saying that that's the same to a woman that's trying to make a vow for her earnings for the future when she gets divorced, and now it's not even hers. Says the Gemara, this analogy as well is also not exactly accurate. Maskech lo Rav Papa, so Rav Papa asks on this, midami, how can you compare this? Hasam, in the case of the property that's out of his possession, gufa upedis, the biyada, the lekeach, both the property itself and any fruits that grow on the property, it's all in the hands of the buyer. The buyer already has the property, and the person that's trying to be makdish has no connection to it at all. Hacha, but over here regarding this woman, gufa biyada, she's being makdish her hands, the power of her hands that earn this money. So her hands is here, that she has right now. Elamai, the actual earnings belongs to the husband, and only after divorce do the actual earnings go to her. But the hands that produces the earnings, that's here already, that she has now. So if so, how could you compare this case to a property that's completely out of her possession? Maybe only over there, regarding the property that's completely out of her possession, you can't be makdish that. But maybe a woman that's making a vow regarding her hands that produced the earnings. So even though the earnings are not hers now, they're only going to be hers after the divorce, but the actual hands are hers right now, are here right now, and therefore she could make this, maybe she could make this neder. And Rav Papa continues and says, "Ha'aloi damya." If you're looking for a case that would be compared to what we're speaking about here regarding this woman, it would be compared to the following: Elaloi melech to a person that says to his friend, "Sadezu shemishkanti lecha." This property, not that I sold to you, but this property that I gave you as a mashkin, as a collateral. If a person has somebody that he borrowed money from, and he doesn't have what to pay, so he's giving a collateral, he's giving a property as a mashkin. What's a mashkin? A mashkin means the actual property itself still belongs to me. I'm just giving it to you to hold on to until I pay you. So the person says, this property that I gave you as a mashkin, likeshe'evdena mimcha, when I will pay you and I'll redeem it from you, tikdash, that then the hekdesh should take effect on this property. The kacha, so the hekdesh will take effect. Why? Because the property itself still actually belongs to me. It's only the usage of the property, the possession of the property that is not now by me. I gave it to this person that I borrowed money from, but the property itself belongs to me. So Rav Papa is arguing, we should say the same thing over here regarding this woman that's trying to be makdish her earnings that her hands produce for the future when she gets divorced. We can say her very hands are here now and belong to her. But the actual earnings, which are compared to the paytas of this property, are not hers yet, will only become hers when she gets divorced. And therefore, we can compare to this case that the vow should take effect. But the Gemara now asks this further. It says it's still not compared to this case. Why not? Maskef Rav Sheshe Bereder Avidi. Rav Sheshe Bereder Avidi asks, Midami. It's not compared to this case. Hasam biyadei levdaisa. When you give your property as a mashkin for someone that you borrowed money from, at any day, at any moment, you have the ability to redeem it. Pay up the loan, and you could redeem the property. So you have a very big power over this field. So therefore, you could be makdish it. However, over here, ein biyada legadish atzma. A woman never has the control and the choice to divorce herself. So yeah, it is true that the actual hands are hers and the earnings are not hers, but those earnings, which are not hers until she gets divorced, she has no control over getting divorced at all. So you can't compare it to this case of a mashkin where this person at any moment could redeem it. So what does Rav Sheshe Bereder Avidi say? Ha loy damya. We would have to say that this case over here that we're speaking about would only be compared person that says to his friend, I give you this field to hold on to as a mashkin, and he says specifically that it's going to be for 10 years. So 10 years means that now within the 10 years he does not have the ability to redeem it. And then he says, when I will redeem it from you in 10 years from now, then it'll become hektish. The kacha. The halach is that the hekdesh takes effect, even though within 10 years he doesn't have the right to redeem it. Why does it take effect? Because the principle, the actual property itself, still does belong to him. Even though he doesn't have the ability to use it, to redeem it within 10 years, still we say that because the very field itself is his, the hekdesh takes effect. So therefore we could say by the woman a similar thing. Well, it doesn't take effect right away, it takes effect then. Right. So over here as well we could say regarding the woman that her hands, which belong to her, so even though the earnings of the hand are not hers right now, it's only later by the Gedushin, and she has no control over the Gedushin, but nevertheless, when the Gedushin happens, it should, the vow should take effect. But the Gemara doesn't accept this either. The Gemara says, Makdish maskefla Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi asks, it's still not an accurate comparison. Why not? Midami, it's not the same. Hasam le'esa shanim, miya biyadei levdaisa. So okay, you're giving a time frame of 10 years, but when the 10 years arrives, then it could redeem it. But over here, a woman doesn't have the ability to divorce herself, not only not today, not only in 10 years from now, forever. A woman never has the ability to go and get herself divorced. So if so, how could we say the question that we asked before, the contradiction in Shmuel's opinion comes back? Shmuel in our Mishnah said that when you're making hektish for something that will happen in the future, the earnings of your wife that you will yashin in the future when she dies, it does not take effect. Chulin. And over here in this Mishnah, when a woman makes a vow for her earnings, even though right now it belongs to her husband, nevertheless, Shmuel's paskening that it will take effect because when she gets divorced, then she will have the rights over this. How does it take effect when she gets divorced? So the Gemara answers.
Sorry, the wife has no choice to make a good wife.
Correct.
Right.
Elam Ravashi. So Ravashi answers. And again, he's going to, similar to what Rav Yosef said before, but he says a different point, that you can't compare hektish to the hektish that we're speaking about before in the Mishnah to the vow that we're speaking about over here. Kainamis kamrit, you're asking a question from a vow. Shani kainamis, the power of a vow is much stronger than the power of hektish. Not just what kind of a hektish are we speaking about? In general, there are two types of hektish. There's one kind of hektish that's called kedushas damim, a hektish where it's only really the value of the object that you're being makdish to that belongs to hektish. And that's anything that you makdish to hektish that's going to be used for anything that's needed in the Beis HaMikdash, the Bedek Habayis, the construction of the Beis HaMikdash. And then there's a hektish which is called kedushas haguf. When you makdish a carbon, the actual body of the behemoth itself becomes hektish, and you cannot redeem it. That's the difference. If something which is only the value of it that becomes hektish, it's possible to redeem it. But if it's something that the very body itself, an animal that you makdish for mizbeach, that's not redeemable. So when the Gemara here is making a distinction between the hektish and the kainamis, which is a vow, it's making a distinction between a vow where when you make a vow that something should be asa for you to have benefit of, the very object itself, it takes effect on it that it becomes hektish. The guf, the thing itself, becomes forbidden for you to have any use of. And the hektish of the Mishnah, which is not speaking about a hektish of a carbon to the mizbeach, it's speaking about a hektish to the Beis HaMikdash, which is only a hektish of damim, of money. Okay, so therefore the Gemara explains. So the hektish, the shari kainim is the kedushas haguf ninu. The vow takes effect on the very thing itself that it becomes forbidden for you to have any benefit of it. This is something that's very powerful. And the point of here is that it's so powerful that even though she doesn't really have the full rights over it presently, she'll only have the rights over it in the future. Nevertheless, the koyach of the neder is so strong that it'll take effect even now. Right. So when it comes to hektish, it will not take effect right now because it's loy bala elam, because that's only a kedushas damim. But when it comes to this, a vow, which is being makdish, the guf of the thing itself, this is so powerful that it takes effect even now. And the Gemara brings a source for this. We had this a few times before. The Gemara says, Rava taught the following. The Amar Rava said, hektish, chametz, v'shichror. If a person is makdish something, right? Let's say a person has a piece of property or a movable item, whatever it may be, that he told a certain a creditor that he owes money to. Here, you're going to collect this for your loan. This is the play. This is what you'll be able to collect for your loan. But then the person is a chacham. He doesn't want the guy to collect it from his loan. So what does he do? He's makdish it to hektish. And now it becomes a carbon. So once it becomes a carbon, the person that he told that he could collect his money from here, he does not have the right to collect from there. So even though before he was makdish it was already dedicated to this person to collect his money from there. That was the deal he made with him. But the hektish is so strong that it overrides that. And it becomes hektish and that person will not be able to collect from here. Or chametz. The case of chametz is also similar. Rashi says a person borrowed money from a guy. And he tells the guy, you'll be able to collect from this chametz. I have a bunch of beer in my basement. This beer you'll be able to collect the loan from. But then the beer is sitting in his basement over Pesach. What's the halacha of chametz that passed over Pesach? It's also to have any benefit from. So now the guy will not be able to collect from there because the issur of chametz is so strong that now it becomes asa bahana. You can't have any benefit from the chametz that passed over Pesach, and therefore the guy will not be able to collect from here. So again, you see that even though there's an original deal in effect that the guy should collect from here, but the issur of chametz removes that right that he has to collect from here. Or the third example is shichrur. If you had an eved, you owned the eved kanani, and you told the person that's collecting money from you that if I don't pay you, this eved will be yours. You take him. But then what happened? You don't want him to collect this eved, so you free him. Once you free him, you can't collect. So the fact that you free him, it takes away his right. Mafkiyim midei shibud. So all these three things, they take away, they uproot the shibud that there was for this person collecting money that was already made in advance. Similar over here, we say regarding this vow, even though the vow she's making is on something that doesn't really belong to her presently, it's only going to belong to her in the future, but nevertheless the koyach of a neder is so strong that it still takes effect. Unlike hektish in our Mishnah before, which was only speaking about the hektish of the value of money, that's something that's not strong enough to take effect. And over there we say it's going to be chulin. Fragt the Gemara, what if that's the pshat? So if so, if the power of a vow is so strong, let it become hektish right now. As we see in what Rava says, it overrides this, that her earnings belong to the husband. So just like we say over there, that the fact that this shayr, or whatever that Rashi says an example of a shayr, any object that you own that was subjugated to a creditor, but nevertheless, the hektish that you make overrides that presently, and the hektish takes effect. So over here as well, we should say that this earnings of the woman that are subjugated to the husband, that belong to the husband, but the vow that she makes is still stronger to override that, and we don't have to say because of the future when she gets divorced. The hektish should take effect right now, or the neder that is should take effect right now. So why do we say only because of the future that he divorces her and then it takes effect? And says the Gemara, Almua Rabbana l'shibude debal. The Chachamim strengthen the shibud that the husband has. In other words, the rights that the husband has in his wife's income. Chachamim strengthened it. In other words, even though usually the rule should be that a vow is strong enough to override the rights that the husband has on her earnings, but nevertheless, Chachamim wanted that the husband should have these earnings, and she shouldn't be able to play around with this, to make vows, to nullify his rights that he has. In order that her neder should not take effect now, and it'll only take effect if he divorces her. So the point of the Gemara's answer is that a vow is different. The power of a vow is very strong, and it could take effect, even though not presently, but it will take effect when she gets divorced. Unlike the Mishnah before, which spoke about hektish and the kedusha of only money. So over there, that kind of a hektish will not take effect if presently it's not in your possession yet. You don't have ownership over this yet. So now this Mishnah actually begins and tells us all of the obligations that a woman, a wife, has to her husband. These are the work that a wife does for the husband. Just to grind for him the kernels, make flour. She bakes. She does laundry. She cooks. And she nurses the children. She spreads the sheet in the beds. And she prepares thread from the wool. Now, but if when she marries, she brings with her a maid. So then, she will not have to grind, she will not have to bake, and she will not have to do laundry because she has a maid that's doing it for her. Shtayim, if she brings two maids, so then she's going to be absolved from even more work. She will not have to cook as well, and she also won't have to feed the children. Shalosh, if she comes with three maids, then she will not have to prepare the bed. She will not have to prepare the thread from the wool. Arba, if she comes in with four maids, Yesheves b'katadra, she can sit like a queen on her chair and she doesn't have to do anything. She has all her maids that are working for her. Rabbi Eliezer says, even if she came and she brings along with her 100 maids, it doesn't matter. Kaife, the husband forces her at least to do something. Lases betzemer, at least to prepare the thread from the wool. Why? Shabbatale mevile de zima, because if she sits and does nothing, that will bring her to get involved in inappropriate behavior. She's bored. She's not doing anything. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says, Af hamaderes ishtoi melasis malacha. Also, a husband that makes a vow and he says to his wife that don't do any work. So then he can't live with her anymore in such a way. He will force the husband to divorce her and give her a ksuba money. Shabbatala mevil edei shimon. Rab Shimon Gamliel says a little bit differently. A person that sits and does nothing, it'll drive you crazy. And even if it doesn't bring you to inappropriate behavior, but nevertheless shimon, it's going to bring you to be. She won't have a good life, so he's going to be forced to divorce her. So the Gemara, what did it say in the Mishnah? Toichenes. Toichenes literally means that she's grinding these kernels by hand. The Gemara, Toichenes, do you actually say that she's grinding this by hand? How do you usually grind kernels? You have a mill, and you have a windmill, or it actually says a water mill, and you place it inside, and then the stones turn, and it's the stones that grind it. She doesn't physically grind it. Why does the Mishnah use this expression? Says the Gemara, Ela ema matchenes. Matchenes means, you're right, she places it inside that causes that the stones should grind it, but she doesn't have to grind it literally by hand. It's the water, it's the power of the water, that a water mill that does it. Or the Gemara actually says, no, maybe she would even be obligated. If she doesn't have this water mill, she'll be obligated to do it by hand. A hand mill that's being powered by her own physical hands. Now the Gemara says regarding the entire Mishnah here that speaks about the work that the wife has to do for the husband. Masnisin the loik Rab Chiya. Our Mishnah is not following what Rab Chiya said. The Tanya Rab Chiya said, Ein isha ela leyofi. Hashem created a woman for her beauty. So therefore, if she's going to work, so then she's not going to retain her beauty. Ein isha ela lebanim. A wife was created for the children, to give birth for children and to take care of the children, but not for all this work that we're speaking about here. Rab Chiya also taught in the Braisa, Ein isha ela letachshite isha. A woman is created for her beauty, to be adorned with all of her jewelry and her dress. Rab Chiya also said, Hareitze sheya adnes ishtay. Person that wants his wife to be beautiful, yalbishana kli pishtan. He should dress her with linen clothing. Hareitze sheyalben es bitay. A person that wants that the skin of his daughters should be whiter, he wants it to have more of a fair complexion. So what's the eitzah for this? Yachilena efreichim, give her to eat young chickens. V'yashkena cholov, and give her to drink milk samach lepirka, close to that time period when she becomes a nairat, the time of 12 years old. So because you see, according to these opinions, a wife is not made for work. But we don't actually paskin like these opinions, though. We paskin like what it says in the Mishnah, that a wife does have obligations to work for her husband. Okay, let's do one more piece here in the Gemara. It says the Gemara Menika is bena. It says that a wife has to feed her sons. Leimen masnisin deloike b'shamai. So our Mishnah does not follow Bishamai's opinion. The Tanya in the Brisa we learned nadra shalei lahanik is bena. A wife makes a vow that she's not going to nurse the babies. So what happens? Beishamai yaimerim. Beishamai says shemetes dad mipiv. So she pulls out her body from her son's mouth, and she does not have to feed. The vow takes effect. That's Beishamai's opinion. However, Beis Hillel say he forces her to feed the baby. Nizgarsha, if she got divorced, then ain't a koife. So then he can't force her to feed the baby anymore. V'moya makira. If he knows her, so then and he knows that the baby does not want to feed from any other wife, and not she's divorced. So what is he going to do? Naisin laschara. He will have to pay her. And he forces her to feed her. He pays her. Because otherwise it's dangerous. The child doesn't want to feed from anybody else. But the point is, what do you see over here? That Bishamai is saying a wife could make a vow not to feed, and the vow takes effect. But if, according to our Mishnah, this is one of her obligations. She's obligated to do it for her husband's sake. She doesn't have any right to make any vow to not feed the babies. So our Mishnah is not like Bishamai. Says the Gemara, Filatayim Beishamai. We can say our Mishnah is following Beishamai with his opinion. The case here is she made this vow, but v'kayim lahu. The husband heard about the vow, and he had the ability to annul the vow, and he did not. He was mekayim the vow. He said, "Okay, no problem. Go ahead. You don't have to feed the babies." So really, it's the husband that is the one that gave up his rights of the wife to do this for him. The Kesabri Beishamai. So now, what's the machlekes between Beis Hillel and Beishamai? Beishamai says. We had this expression before. Who naisen etzba beishinau? It's he that placed his own fingers between her teeth. In other words, the fact that she's biting him, the fact that she's not doing this obligation, it's his fault. You knew about this vow and you okayed it. So therefore it's your fault. So you gave this up. Beis Hillel sabri, but Beis Hillel say, no, he nasna etzba beishinau. She's the one that placed her own finger between her teeth. In other words, the fact that the husband allowed this vow to go ahead does not mean that he gave up his rights for this. She's the one that made the vow, and she doesn't have the ability to make this kind of a vow in the first place, and therefore it does not take effect. But wait a minute, if this is the case over here, if the point of their argument is, in a case where she makes a vow, and he is mekayim the vow, he okays the vow, and the question is, who's at fault over here? Is it her or him? So why are they arguing specifically about this case of feeding the baby? So let their argument be regarding any ksubah. Let's say a woman makes a neder that the husband can't have any benefit from her. And the husband hears about this, and the husband says, okay, no problem, I can have no benefit from you. So now the question is, will the husband be obligated to divorce her or not? Do we say that he okayed this, so he was meichelit, so he doesn't have to divorce her? Or no, the husband did not okay it. Right? So the exact same argument you can have regarding the ksubah in general. Another thing is, Tanya, we learned clearly in the Braisa, Beishamai Oimrim Eina Menika. It says clearly in the Braisa regarding all women that Beishamai says that she does not have an obligation to feed the babies. It doesn't talk there about a vow. It says, Beishamai says this is not one of the obligations of a wife. So we go back to what we said before, that the Mishnah that says here that a wife has to feed the baby is not like the opinion of Beishamai.
it's been a